Before we actually get started with like digging into a bit of your why did it fail moment, one of the things that we like to do just to see where people's personalities are is two truths and a lie. And obviously, I'll have to guess the lie. You up for that?
Up for that, yeah.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
Okay, so two truths and a lie. First one. As an SDR and AE, I never missed quota. Number two, I'm a massive nerd. Love anything sci-fi related. Number three, before the business that I run now, I've had two other businesses that both failed.
Thanks for sharing. For the audience out there, I've had a look at his LinkedIn, obviously. So I'm thinking, where do I go from what research I've been able to see? And I definitely don't know the answer. I'm gonna go with the sci-fi thing being the lie, just because of how you alluded to the things you said about a bit about your background. What is it?
The lie is number one. I definitely missed quota a fair few times.
I wanted to
Um,
give you like a benefit of the doubt because you've
yeah,
got a
yeah.
long work history. You've got a lot of like top stuff. You've even got, I think it was Perk or Peak Box, and like your
Yeah,
journey throughout from SDR to AE. Like I'm like, this guy knows how to hit target.
yeah.
Okay.
I hit target a few times as well, but I definitely missed target a few times. To be honest, though, they're at the time the worst, but then in hindsight, they're your best months. It just depends on how you bounce back from it, basically. That's my view anyway.
Brilliant. It's well, one, I got it wrong, but two, thanks for sharing. Because the whole reason and the background to where we created this podcast was I'm having all these conversations over all the years that I've been around, and you always hear about the glossy, you always hear about like this is where we came from, but like
Stuff.
people only see the end result. But it's the
Yeah, yeah.
struggle that got them there. So, and I've found that if more people were able to share their failures, more could relate and identify and potentially miss some of those things.
This is literally why I shared that one as the lie.
Brilliant. All right. So tell us what that failure was that you've got in mind that you're going to walk us through, please.
Yeah, sure. So failure was I was a first time leader at my first tech company,
Hmm.
which I think a lot of people will probably relate to this. Your first tech company, I think, is almost your first love in many ways as well, right? You get very sucked in. The culture is normally different to maybe what you've experienced before in a more corporate style environment. So I was very much in love with that business. I'd gone through the ranks from SDR, AE, up into AE leadership. Way too young, of course, but obviously I was never going to say no to that promotion. I was going to back myself and try to do it. But yeah, I would say that the company and the company's ambitions outgrew me, right? I didn't think it at the time. I was when I got fired. But I also think that my success was before that had made me too egotistical and feeling of like being slightly untouchable. So yeah, it was a real reality check actually getting fired for the first time. I didn't really know what to do on the back of it for a good couple of weeks, but I'm sure we'll talk more about that. But yeah, well and truly fired from leadership, basically. That's my big
Ouch.
fail.
Ouch. So this concept would obviously be when you was in that mindset at that moment that you've shared with us. So what made you think it was going to work?
Taking the role in the first place.
Yeah.
Well, so I've been at the business for about 3 years,
Uh-huh.
and we'd been really successful as a business. It was one of those businesses that we had a really good culture, but we'd also hit product market fit at exactly the right time, and we'd raised money, and leadership were good. So it was had all the magic ingredients of being a really successful business, and it was, and we hit targets a lot. And as you stack up, the month over month, quarter over quarter hitting target, I think as a younger salesperson, which is definitely my experience, was, and I've seen it in others, is your ego starts to stack as well,
Hmm.
right? you stop being able to like almost emotionally regulate what you can and maybe can't do.
Hmm.
And there's a difference, I think, between confidence and arrogance. And I would say that I actually overstepped the line on on the arrogance part, right? I took this role when I was like 24, and it was managing a lot of AEs. It wasn't just first line management. This was managing the managers of the AEs as well. So I just, yeah, I think I took on too much too soon in my in my career, and that quickly started to unravel a little bit, right? Where like I was teaching myself and feeling like I was keeping heads above water more than we were like, moving forwards. And I didn't have the skill set to be able to scale the team in the way the business needed it to be built from an infrastructure perspective. So yeah, it was just one of those things where the business has ambitions outgrew my own ability to kind of grow at that sort of speed, right? That they needed from me. And but I'd always been successful in all the other roles once I'd taken them on. So I just thought I'll just do what I did last time and
Hmm.
just work really, really hard. But unfortunately, there's only 24 hours in a day. So I think no matter how hard I worked, it was never gonna, work fully. And I think the other part of that was, there was, I said, this confidence arrogance line, right? Like I would say I backed myself too much. I know everyone says back yourself, right? I always back myself, but I think you need to have an element of like humility about that, where you're able to
Yeah.
hold your hands up and say, hey, here's things I don't know, and here's where I do need help. And I really struggled at that point in my career to be able to admit those things. I was always that guy who was like, I'll work it out, all good. And that slowed me down even more, right? Because it took me 10x longer to work these
Yeah.
things out with lots of mistakes. So I think cumulatively that just added up to the business not trusting me to be able to build the sales org in the way that it needed to be built. And honestly, it was the best decision for everyone. I just didn't see it at the time when we originally had that convo and let me go. I was like, I'm absolutely furious. Like I was the first salesperson here. We're now 40 salespeople. I attributed way too much of that success to me, and it took me a few months, years probably to kind of like be like, look, this was a team effort, it wasn't me. It was team being in the right place at the right time. A lot of things that were very uncontrollable. Like the only thing I brought really to the table was a work ethic that was maybe a lot harder than most of the people's. It wasn't special. I wasn't like, I kind of put myself on that pedestal a little bit. And I think that happened because of hitting quotas so much or smashing them or whatever, getting paid way more than I should have age 23, 24. I think sales can do that to you. Um, but yeah, it took a lot of hard conversations right, after I got let go with other people close to me for me to kind of realize like, all right, well, the business aren't the only people that think this, right? Like people about personal life think this too, right? And there's been a bit of a change there that not everyone likes, apart from apparently me. And then I realized that actually I look in the mirror, maybe I don't like this change, right? Like maybe this was actually like you don't see those changes when you're in kind of the day to day, but then
Yeah.
when you're getting fired was a big realization for me to look in the mirror and be like, what do I actually like about myself? What do I not?
Wow.
Who's me? Who's not me? And then how am I kind of living that daily?
Hmm.
I realized the last year of my kind of life in that business, I wasn't really living that daily. I was trying to be someone that I wasn't because I wasn't quite ready for the role, basically.
That makes sense. It's really refreshing to hear you share so candidly. Throughout the time when you were speaking just then, I've got this saying, doesn't necessarily apply to you, but definitely applies to me at times. I've got this thing where it's like, don't you know who I think I am in my head?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like being it, like you said, like it's
I
right
know.
in front of you, but you're the only one that can't see it.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for that. Like, I wish more people were that transparent. So, with that same scenario, and thanks again because you've shared such great detail and been really transparent with it. Was there was there a moment when like that gut feeling, and it was like, you know what, Chris, this isn't gonna work.
Um, Honestly, I thought I could do it pretty much to the end. Like it was a shock. The conversation was a shock for me to have. Like, and I went through the stages straight because it was just a shock. I thought I had so much kind of credit in the bank
Yeah.
from, performing in SDR, performing as a frontline manager, performing as an AE, that I thought I was almost untouchable, right? So, but that was just a lack of experience in business showing. Um, and I also think that's just how much, the hitting quota kind of went to my head also,
Yeah.
right? And I see that in a lot of younger reps now is, you get hitting quotas for 12 months in a row, or they're top billers or whatever, and they're slightly different people to the one that started, a year, 2, 3 years ago. You need to kind of wait for them to get so complacent they miss quota that they almost realize. It was just for me, it wasn't missing quota that helped me realize it was kind of a bit more dramatic of getting fired, right?
Hmm.
But I actually genuinely believe that I could do it up until the end. It was actually afterwards that I went through a period of anger. I would say I was very angry about it,
Hmm.
for maybe a week or so. And my partner had to literally, I had to literally give my phone to my partner because I was like, I'm just angry. So like,
Yeah.
don't let me, say anything silly. Um, and then I'm not really an angry person, but I was just angry about it. And then
Yeah.
I went through a period of being kind of upset and like, what am I going to do? I've lost kind of like, first love of my life in tech. And then the second, the third part, sorry, was a period of like genuine like just reflection. Like my one of my like traits as a person is I'm very accountable for everything. If I say it, I'll do it, but then I will happily admit when I'm wrong. And when something goes wrong, I will at some point, just took me a couple of weeks to get to this point, deeply reflect on it. And I write lots of things down all the time. So I'll often write down like, what could I have done? Like, Chris, what could you've actually done
Hmm.
here? And there were loads of things. This list was like almost like this endless list of things that when it's actually like looking at it in an unbiased, non-angry way, full accountability just on what you can control, Chris. The list just kept going and going. So I was like, wow, like, okay, like I'm unloading all of these things onto paper. I was like, well, there's a lot here that you could have done. Like maybe this wasn't them. Maybe this was you, right? Like maybe you are in exactly the right place, which is being fired. And like that realization was like, wow.
Hmm.
So then I basically went to kind of get more answers from other people. Like, okay, these things here, like genuinely since I started at the business, like, what do you think? Because I'd also felt like, so I was working so much, I wasn't as close to my parents, my sisters, my best mates as I had been before. And yeah, and then I sat down, had honest conversations with them all face to face at different
Yeah.
points over the next month or so, because I was unemployed, so I wasn't doing anything else. And and they were just like, honestly, Chris, like, we love you, but you've forgotten one of your key parts of life, which is you always say, take what you do seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously. And they were like, and what's changed is you take what you do so seriously, but the worst thing is you take yourself way too seriously now. And we honestly just think that it's the money that's gone to your head, the success, people telling you you're good, money saying to you you're good, essentially without saying it. And you've taken that very seriously, right? And it's not been an overnight change, but it's been a gradual change that maybe you haven't even realized until now. And those conversations were pretty like they were a lot for me to take on board. They kind of then led me to go through a phase of, right, I'm going to reach out to loads of other people,
Hmm.
essentially say sorry. So I ended up reaching out to my old managers who fired me, said sorry.
Yeah.
Met up with them for a drink. I apologized. I asked them to tell me
Brilliant. Brilliant.
what are all the things I could have done better. How can I best move forwards? What are the things you like, so, that maybe I haven't been showing as much in the last 6 to 12 months or whatever that time frame is. And yeah, I literally did that, and I just was like, right, well, there's only one way out of this, and that's you're gonna have to own it. So own it. It's gonna really hurt, and it's gonna be
Hmm.
awkward as hell. But yeah, we had those we had those combos at the pubs or wherever, and with my mates and stuff, and essentially asked for forgiveness a little bit. And everyone was basically like, "Can't believe you've got the balls to do that," because no one does. But fair play, like. second chances are important. So yeah, that, and then after that moment, I kind of made it my mission to stop a lot of these behaviors, or
Mhm.
like, or just check myself. I was like, yeah, you're doing well, but ego's the enemy, right? Like makes you complacent. It makes you stop caring about the real things that you as a person, Chris, really care about in life and actually really make you happy. Um, yeah, I think I just thought that those things were money and status because I grew up with not very much money and not very much status. So I always thought like this, that phrase of like, when you're poor, you want to be rich, and then when you're rich, you just want to be poor and no one to know you, right? I wasn't saying that everyone knew me. I was just saying more like, yeah, like appreciate the simple things in life more,
Mhm.
right? Like your friends, your family, your relationships, that stuff. I think I just stopped investing in those quite as much as I was investing in doing deals or stuff like that, right? So yeah, it was a real good, like really hard time, but really, probably the best time for me was when I look back, that's like the number one biggest learning curve, closely followed by my first like 3 months as an SDR.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Thanks again for sharing so candidly. You mentioned so many things. Um, have you read Ego is the Enemy?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, when you said it, I was like, I read that too. It's like, get out of your own way.
Yeah, yeah, big stoic, mate. Big stoic on this side, but only
Brilliant.
recently, the last 2 or 3 years.
Okay, okay. And you mentioned only in the last few years, as well as this scenario, within reason, is there anything that you can share as to what helped you change direction? I know for myself, when I've adopted new behaviors, or more often than not, if I'm honest with you, Chris, when I've shed the old behaviors that don't surface, don't suit the man I am today, there was reasons behind that. Was there anything like that for yourself with this stuff?
Yeah, I just didn't feel, I honestly just didn't feel like I was serving the person I wanted to be in the best way. Um, and I wouldn't say I was like, you know, when I actually looked at my life again, I like to reflect on things, I journal a lot, that sort of stuff. But when I was like really looking at myself and what actually makes me happy and what doesn't make me happy, all the things that I'd been saying to myself that would make me happy, job titles, um, like cash side of things, what cash can buy, all that sort of stuff. Like I wasn't ever getting a sense of like true fulfillment, right? Like I really observed myself going through these promotions, getting pay rises multiple times. And at no point was I ever like, yeah, I'm incredibly happy right now because of that. I was like, yeah, I've had almost like this kind of ecstasy moment that's lasted maybe a few hours. And then every single time I got promoted or a pay rise, I'd always say the same thing. When's the next one? I'd say that to myself and then just go off on my merry way going and chasing that. And I think when you're chasing maybe the wrong goal with regards to happiness, that means you make a ton of small bad decisions every day at the expense of something else in your life. So the thing for me more recently was that I just changed what the goal was, the big goal in my life. And the big goal in my life became rather than chasing this career thing, it was chasing having a family dynamic where my wife and my kids see me every day, right? And we have an incredible relationship. I know that sounds like such a basic goal, but the joy that I get from dropping my son off at nursery, or we have breakfast together as a family, that then means that I make decisions each day to, yeah, occasionally I'll say no to doing some work related stuff because it's the family, right? First. But then that means I see them more and I'm happier because I'm with them, right? Rather than doing the deals or the more business or more podcasts or whatever. Like there has to be a limit with those things. But as I say before, because my goal was the work related stuff, that meant all my micro decisions and all my focus every day was on work at the expense of my relationships.
Yeah.
So, and that was really reflective, right, in all the conversations that my friends and family had with me after things went wrong and I failed, I got fired, was, I basically sacrificed a lot of those friendships for that point and relationships for that at that point. I was just lucky enough to have very patient friends and family and a partner, basically, I
Yeah.
think, when I'm really reflective on it. So yeah, I'm making a commitment. Like, I never want to have that again. Like I'm really serious about that. So yeah, it was just searching for the right goal, I think. And it took me a lot. It really took me a lot to say that the right goal for me is this: I want to see my family every day. Because when people say to me now, like, what's the goal of the business? I'm like, well, it's to allow me to see my family every day. And they're like, that's the weirdest business goal ever. I'm like, well, it's it's about me being happy, right? 'Cause the happier I am, the better I'll deliver for customers, funnily enough, and the better I'll write some posts for LinkedIn and whatever that is, right? That I'm doing in that kind of moment. So, yeah, but it took me some good years of mucking up a little bit, being a different person
Mhm.
to kind of have those inflection moments, I'd say.
Brilliant. It's really nice to hear you speak so passionately about family and stuff. Definitely for me, there's no better feeling than when my youngest daughter comes running up to me, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. It's like, and you would know it's game changing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, do you know what was the mo like one there was a big moment for me when so as I said, I'm quite a reflective person. But I like structured reflection where I like to do it, myself, write things down, etc. I think I find that very important. It's almost like self-therapy in some ways. But
Yeah.
you was my dad's not an emotional guy at all. Like he's just not an emotional guy. And I remember when I had these conversations with him, just me and him, like we never really talk about our feelings. We never have growing up. It's always been like, let's chat football or sports, but that sort of stuff, right? So it was weird and it was awkward. And he just said, look, son, the best advice I can give you is go away and have a think about what you will regret when you are on your deathbed. Right. And he's a very candid bloke, right? But he was like, go and have a think about what you will regret when you're on your deathbed. I'll tell you the one thing that you won't regret is working the hours that you work and focusing on that. Tell you what you will regret is you will regret not seeing me and your mum. You will regret not having a relationship with your sisters. You will regret not having a relationship with your wife, bridge, whatever, because it's broken down because of all these little things that you're doing all the time, right? Go and have a think about that. So at the time I was like, okay. Um, that's maybe like the most kind of like deep we've ever gone, genuinely. So then I was like, right, well, I'll go and do it. And yeah, it kept coming back to the same thing, right? It's like you got all these famous people in the world and they all have the same regret, right? Not
Yeah.
seeing their family, not, doing the small things in life that actually make people really happy. So yeah, that was kind of like a big, big moment for me because it takes a lot for my dad, I think, to get to any sort of point of being like, look, think about this. Normally he's happy to just be like, you work it out, son. But at this point, he was almost like, I need to kind of make my own version of an intervention.
Yeah.
As a, dad born in the 50s who's,
Different era. Yeah.
yeah, different era, different way of thinking, like everything's about actions, not words, that
Mhm.
sort of stuff. So for him to actually intervene almost with some words was kind of like, and thought-provoking words was kind of like, right, like it's hit me quite hard. And he literally said at the end, he was like, but look, whatever you decide, whatever you want to do, just know, me and your mum will always love you. And that was one of the first, he never says I love you, right? So like hearing that as well, I was like, right, that's like it's a big moment. But the moment is not that they'll always love me. The moment is I have to make a choice now.
Okay.
Because that's what he was saying, right? He was like, whatever you choose. And the other words that I really heard was like, yeah, the love you was amazing. But it's also like, now is time for you to go and have a think about it.
Wow. That's a lot. Thanks so much for that. With the with the failure itself, looking back on it, so not if you could go back in time, but looking back on it now that especially as like you're such a reflective person, you journal, you spoke about a lot of ways that you constructively reflect. What would you do differently if that same situation came up again?
If it came up again in the future or I relived it,
If you relived it.
honestly, I wouldn't change it. The reason why, and I've thought about this a lot, would I change it? Would I do something different? The reason why was at the time I thought about all the things I should have done.
Hmm.
But with perspective now, I've come to the conclusion maybe. maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I came to the conclusion. It took me a long time to get to this conclusion, by the way, was I don't regret it because it put me on a different path. And it put me on a better path. It was almost like life saying, "Hey, here's the kick up the ass you need. Um, we're going to give it to you, and then it's your choice to do with that what you want."
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, I don't regret it in any way because it was almost like the low that I really needed to reset me and really deeply think about what do I want out of this life. Um, and I know it sounds very philosophical, very deep. It's like you've only got one, each day counts. Are you doing what you believe are the right things, working towards the right goals each day to
Hmm.
build a great life, right? Because I think people's description of a great life is you have your holiday each year, nice car, nice house. Whereas like I started that those things made me really challenge what I believed was a great life. And at the time, I thought a great life was the car that my parents never had, the big
Uh-huh.
house my parents never had,
Hmm.
the jobs that my parents never had, the money and the salaries that my parents didn't have.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That's what I thought was amazing, right? Or the life that I wanted to or needed to create. But
Hmm.
that moment made me, set off a series of like conversations and stuff like that that led me down, to a different conclusion, which was that ultimately much better for my happiness, my relationships with parents, sisters, friends, wife, all of those things. So yeah, definitely no regrets.
Brilliant. Was there anything or any things in particular that did work in that time?
Yeah, I think lots of stuff worked from a hitting quota perspective. Like the
Yeah.
team pretty much always hit quota, right? And the culture of the team was incredible. People, it's the best culture I've probably ever been part of. The team, um, just looked after each other, right? Everyone had each other's backs at all points, and it was amazing from that perspective, right? What we built was very much when the chips are down, we roll our sleeves up, we come together, and we really fight hard for number, right? But that was then at the expense, and then we celebrate as a team probably a bit too hard, and all of that sort of stuff. So whilst that built this kind of incredible, what we viewed as almost like insular society of salespeople within the team, and we all had each other's backs, and we were all best friends. I would say that meant that we probably didn't a lot of people just probably didn't actually have like the lives outside of the office,
Hmm.
right? Or the lives outside the office were with people from the office, right? So it was very all-encompassing in many ways, which was amazing for us kind of getting to where we needed to be. But what we didn't build anything sustainable. It
Okay.
was and that was that was we very much incorporated the sales is sales piece is sort of like live fast lifestyle, right? And you win during the day, do deals, and then you have drinks at night, and
Hmm.
win during the day, you have drinks at night. And I don't think that necessarily created the best humans, right? Generally speaking, um, because it was just too much, right? It was very 90s almost in that kind of regard. But what I will say is that everyone had each other's backs. Everyone was very supportive. Everyone was really close friendship wise. Everyone looked after each other, all of that sort of stuff. So we did a lot right there, and we did hit quotas. We just didn't do it in a sustainable way. It was always a crazy, crazy last week of the month, every single month. And but yeah, like it was. I still look back on it with super fond memories. Lots of really good people from there. Some friends, that came to my wedding from that business, etc. Right?
All of those lessons and all of that transparency and courageous stuff you shared so far, how has that shaped the leader that you are today?
I think I think it's just about under. It's helped me understand that people on the team or on my teams since then, I almost it helped me grow up from a management leadership perspective because it allowed me to let them fail. Whereas before, I didn't let anyone fail. I always jumped in and did it for them. So I almost created these sort of like brat children of salespeople that are like, oh, fine, because Chris will just bail us out. Whereas actually learning the lesson that I learned was going through the low was incredibly important for me to come out the other side. The job is just people when you were going through the low. It's not stopping the low. A leadership is also about letting the low happen, but being there through the low. Rather than what I think most leaders do is they try and stop the low moments, right? Especially in sales. Let's try and stop anyone from missing quota. And I wasn't actively encouraging people to miss quota, but what I was, doing was holding back slightly on the cool, like let me jump on all the calls and I'll close the deals for you. It was more a run it, I back you, but if you fail, I will be there,
Yeah.
right? Rather than we never fail together because I'm doing it for you. And that was just a complete, that was just, that was a complete culture shift from my first team to my second team because my second team, my third team onwards, they just became much more self-sustainable. They
Hmm.
learned like the first team had amazing sales skills in many ways, and so did the second team third teams. But what the second team, third teams had that the first one didn't was the soft skills to get because they'd never gone through the hardships really. So you almost had to let them do that and then pick them up when they were down a little bit, right? Show them that you are there through that hard time, that you're not just immediately going to throw them on a pip
Hmm.
and tell them off, and you're going to sit with them and say that how's that feel? Like where are you at right now? And then how can we support and move move together move forwards together. So that was a big moment. I think the second thing was I switched and actually have a lot in common with Dave Bentham on this. And we go back quite a long time, but one of the things that I employed at the second company was this culture of they decide the rules, not me. So the first company was like, I'll decide the rules, and then everyone you just kind of like obey the rules.
Yeah.
Whereas the first company, because I just didn't know any better at 24, for the second company, I used to do things like, okay, here's the issue. We're gonna get in the room. So let's say, cool, we're miles behind on target with a week to go. Here's the numbers. We're at 50% of quota. And I just say, look, what are we gonna do this week to make it happen? I'm gonna leave the room. You're going to come up with three actions as a team that you are going to do. And I'm going to come back in the room, you'll present it to me, and we'll agree. But you come up with the rules, and you come up with what you're going to do, and then everyone buys into it. And the difference was I stopped going from the half an hour motivational speeches to kind of get everyone up for the week on a Monday morning to they were self-accountable. They almost policed themselves
Oh.
because they'd be like, yeah, we're going to do 150% of KPIs this week or whatever it was. But they'd all agreed to it. So I didn't even have to police them. They literally were like a self-governing society almost of salespeople. And that was the big difference between something, infrastructure and culture that didn't scale that I created in the first instance to learning from that and creating a culture that did scale where I didn't need to be everywhere and do everything and work 24 hours a day and break myself and my relationships for at the expense of, you know, hitting quotas or whatever. So that was, one of the actual practical things I took from that
Mhm.
first experience from a leadership perspective purely.
Okay. And then for my final question for yourself, if someone's thinking, aspiring, wondering about taking that leap, whether it be their first ever leadership position, a step up from middle management to senior management, C-suite VP, whatever that might be, have you got any guidance or shared experience on top of what you've already walked us through today that you would like to have heard yourself or that you would like to share with someone, please?
Yeah, I think this is a bit of a stereotype, right? But when it comes to promotions, typically guys back themselves a little bit more than our female counterparts, right? I was no different. I would just back myself without even really thinking about it. Yeah, of course I can do it. Right. It was quite, rooted in my own ego. One of the best managers I ever had, she said, "Look, Chris, we're thinking about promoting you at some point. Okay, I can't promise you anything, but we're thinking about it. And I want to think more seriously about it. But before I think seriously about this, I want you to think seriously about it." I was like, "Okay, how do you like recommend that I do that?" Go, just like think about it, because obviously, I'm going to come to the same conclusion. I'm just going to be like, thought about it. It's a yes. Pay me the money, right? What I said was, she was just like, "I want you to think about it like this. I want you to go away, and I want you to go and work out, right? By speaking to people, reading stuff, whatever that process is. I want you to go and work out over the next month or so what it means to do this job and what job we promote you excellently. Not do the job, not just turn up. I want you to think about excellence. But I want you to work out all the things that you need to be really, really good at. And that's not going to be, thinking about it for half an hour on the tube home. That's going to be a process of research for you. And
Mhm.
that's why we're not talking about promoting you next month. That's why we're talking about 3 to 6 months time, because you need to go through this in your own mind to come to a point where we don't want you to have a ramp up, right? You will, but we want day one you to perform well as a leader from day one in this role. And that means the process starts now, 6 months out. And stage one of that is research. So part of the actions that I took were, what I had to do was I had to do research. I had to write down on one side of the page, it turned out to be literally like 8 pages or something, all the things that I needed to be excellent at, and then where I was at now with those things. But the interesting last line, right? Because in this case, most guys, they typically say, "Yeah, here's the things I'm good at, and then I'm pretty good at them already." Whereas our female counterparts will typically be a little bit more self-critical and say, "I'm not as good as might actually be." So the interesting, like, last column on the pages was, here's out what you think you are with regards to these, and then here's what real people think, but it was anonymous, right? So you do the first part of the exercise. These are the things, and this is how you think. Send to your manager, right?
Mhm.
And then your manager, this person, she was called Elaine, she then sent to 10 people on her side, right? Who
Yeah,
knew me, but I never found out who they were. And then they scored me on those things.
brilliant.
And I was literally like, it was almost like, I don't know if you ever listened to the podcast, High Performance Podcast by Ben
Yeah.
Francis, where he's like, he thought he was an amazing CEO for Gymshark. And then it was like, everyone was saying, like, "You're not that good. Like, here's the things that are really annoying and whatever." At first, I was like, I'm fine with feedback, but wow, like some of these things are like, these are not me. These are, some of these things are not the leader I believe I am, kind of like I am every day. It was really interesting how I was acting and how a lot of things were being perceived
Yeah.
by people were often a real misalignment of between me and the team. So that was an incredible exercise for me understanding where real people thought I actually was
Hmm.
with regards to the real skills that it would take for me to be successful in that position that I wanted. Right? It took me out of the mindset of I can do anything I want to do, and I can do it because I've done this role really well, so therefore I must be able to do this role pretty well, to focus on being excellent from day one. But you need a reality check with yourself before you make the jump. And that's where I see, like, a lot of, let's say, I work with a lot of SDRs who want to be AEs right now. And then the biggest jump that they actually need to make is not in the hard skills of doing discovery or demos, etc. A lot of it is their readiness, almost from a soft skill perspective, to kind of make that jump, handle that pressure, right? Etc. etc. So yeah, I think that was a real great exercise that I'd recommend everyone do, because also from high performers perspective, it's perfect for an ego check too, like a reality check. Because a lot of you maybe listen to this are high performers, and you know you think you need a promotion, but what you actually need sometimes is a good reality check
Yeah.
and then the promotion, right? Because that kind of really is what sets you up for the success in that role is it's not easy, whatever the promotion is. That gives you the reality check of like, wow, like maybe I do need to just slow down, learn the skills and build something more sustainable here, right? The average person retires when they're 67, as my dad always says. He's 67 this year. You retire. He's like, your career is long. Like, just take your time sometimes, make the right decisions, and everything will then start to pay back. Just maybe not on the paycheck side of things, but in lots of other areas. So yeah, that's that would be my advice.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much, not only for your time, but for taking us through such an eventful journey full of
Yeah.
creativity, adaptability, some hard lessons, some hard-won lessons, and just being able to be so transparent. People always talk about my authentic self, and the fact that you was able to just be completely candid, reference family, reference work, reference failures, it's really something that can be really refreshing for people. So it's a pleasure to meet you. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Yeah, no worries. And honestly, I think this has actually felt like almost like a bit of a therapy session talking about it, right? But in a good way, in a great way. Like you almost get the questions get you to reflect on the journey and stuff like that. So yeah, no, I think that's the thing. The final thing I'll say is you gotta some point, not in the moment, but at some point learn to love the failures and what
Mm,
they teach you. I think often we want to run away from those negative feelings in our mind. But as soon as you face them up and you try and find some positive in them, that kind of old Stoic philosophy saying of amor fati, right? Like there is some positive in every situation, even if it's bad, lost a deal, whatever, got fired, whatever, right? Just try and sit down with yourself and look for at least one thing that was, maybe a good thing that came out of it. Because we often catastrophize in the moment and then run away from that negative feeling without ever facing it. So that will be the starting point for folks. But with mine, it took me a couple of weeks, right? I was angry,
mhm, mhm.
upset, and then I still did it. And that was the important bit was actually, you know, doing that facing it up piece.
Brilliant. Well, Chris, thanks again so much for your time. It was a pleasure to meet you. Take care of yourself.
Yeah. You
Thank you.
too.
Bye.